would like to introduce my friend Mike McCormick, who is the independent candidate for Garland County Sheriff, who is a winner. And since he is won, he has done a number of things. He's here to tell us about that. And of course, we're all interested in greater details about the state of the situation and why things were done and what's happening now. So, here's Mike McCormick.
I'm going to try to do this without the microphone because it's almost like I'm partially muted if one of my hands is tied up. So please let me know if I fall short. Are you going to hold it? No, I'm going to turn it off. Reggie, would you hold it for me? Right. It truly feels like I'm among friends when I come and talk about the Tea Party. It's almost like I'm in a living room having a casual conversation. But I do have a lot to talk about today, and I'm almost at the 3-month mark as the Sheriff of Garland County. And I can tell you this much, it has been a Bronco ride, and I say that lightly. With the exception of, I guess, the birth of my daughter and marrying my last wife, it's probably been a high point for me in my life. So, once again, absolutely my honor to be here. Priority one, and it has been from the very start, and it will continue to be, upholding the U.S. Constitution.
Amen.
Especially the Bill of Rights. Every decision I make, that's where I get my authority. What makes the sheriff's position so unique is it's the only law enforcement position that I'm aware of that you're voted in by the people, for the people. There are a couple exceptions, such as your constable. But as far as someone having full authority to enforce the law throughout the county, the sheriff is the chief law enforcement official and the only one that falls into that category of being a constitutional officer. We've done a lot of great things at the sheriff's office this year. I'm going to try this. It's going to be a problem. We've done a lot of great things at the sheriff's office since the first of the year. One of the things that I knew needed to be implemented immediately was accountability throughout the entire department. And I started on that from day one. We were fortunate to have a top-notch chief deputy in there, Mark Chamberlain, who was in charge of the detention center. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But that has been a tremendous program, a tremendous building, and that should be opening up in the next couple of months. And I think we're going to make a lot of long-term, very positive changes in Garland County because of that. If you've not had a chance to go through the building, I encourage you to take the opportunities that will be coming up in the next 2 months to get out there and see it. And I know a lot of people have already done that. Another decision that was made that turned out to be 100% on track was hiring the second chief deputy, which is Jason Lawrence. He has been a tremendous asset to me. Very, very hard work. He gets there early, he stays late, and he makes some very good decisions. So I brought some very positive people into the sheriff's office that are helping me because the position itself cannot be done by one man. In fact, we're very close to 200 employees now at the sheriff's department, and they're all working hard. I also recognized early on that the department needed reorganization. It needed more structure. There was a lack of supervisory accountability throughout the whole department. And that's a process that's ongoing. And hopefully within the next 6 months, I'll have all my reorganizations completed within the sheriff's department. I also have always prided myself in being very proactive. The sheriff's office had evolved into a reactive mode over the years. And there's a lot of reasons for this. One of them was lack of proper organization within the department, lack of funding within the department. And I knew resources would be very limited, and they turned out to be absolutely true. I had to reach within the department and utilize the resources that we had. One of the things that was outrageous is there were times within Garland County where there was only 2 patrol deputies patrolling the 800 square miles that Garland County consists of. I've been able to go within and pull from administrative positions, and we now have 1 additional patrol deputy per patrol shift. Now you might think that doesn't really make much of a difference, but it actually makes a huge difference. It's dropped our overall response time down by 2 minutes. The average response time for the sheriff's department is about 11 minutes. And that's a long time if you're in the house with an intruder or you're being abused in some manner. So 2 minutes, huge difference. Still takes us a decent amount of time to get there, but we're heading in the right direction. I'm going to continue trying to build up our patrol staff so we can be more responsive. Administrative staff needed to be cross-trained. They needed to be very focused in what they were doing. And that's something I've been working very hard to do, and also combining duties and responsibilities. And once again, that's a movement that is in progress. So you'll see more improvement there. Street crimes. Garland County is noted as the meth capital of Arkansas, and it actually has been for a long time. We have a drug task force that is efficient, but they're focused towards upper level drug activity. They spend very little time on street level drug activity. Do not have this in place as of this point, but in the very near future, utilizing resources that we already have on board, I'm going to be creating a street crimes unit that is going to be focusing on street crime, street level drug activity. And I think we'll see a big difference with that type of enforcement, and the fact that we're going to have the detention center operational in the very near future, where you can actually hold people accountable by putting them in incarceration. Accountability and transparency are the key to getting public support. I said this the first time I spoke to the Tea Party. The more you know, the more you can hold your public servants accountable. And I've tried very hard to be as transparent as I possibly can. There's situations where you're limited for various reasons, and we'll talk more about that in just a few minutes. Effective tomorrow, I'm going to implement an internal affairs committee within the department. So when we get complaints, we have a very methodical and thorough process that we go through to investigate alleged improprieties. And I have very high hopes that that's going to improve the accountability within the sheriff's office. One of the issues that I'm dealing with is a tight budget. And believe me, I have a very, very tight budget. I inherited a budget that was created by the previous sheriff, and is not leaving me a whole lot of room to negotiate and bring new things within the department. There's ways we can manipulate what we've got, but the budget is definitely slowing me down to a degree. I'm trying to work towards expanding the reserve deputy program. And if you're not familiar with that, those are volunteers that are qualified, that have gone through the proper training and the proper certification to where they can conduct deputy sheriff business. They don't start out at this level. They can work their way up to where they're actually doing patrol activity. We've got the Marine Patrol that's coming up in the next couple of months that will be out on the lakes. And I'm wanting to utilize the reserve deputies in that function as much as possible. all that saves money. And every dollar that I save, I can filter towards other needs and responsibilities. Training within the department is something, once again, I knew right up front the Sheriff's Office was deficient in. I worked very hard to bring training into the Sheriff's Department and to send officers out. With putting one additional person per shift, it has given us a lot more leeway where we can let people off to go to training. And the deputies are responding well. And I have to say, the support and excitement that I've received from the employees of the Sheriff's Office, both sworn officers and civilians, has really been outstanding. You don't know what you're going to get. I've talked to different new sheriffs that have gone into departments, and they get no response, no cooperation whatsoever. Fortunately, it's been 180 degrees on the other side of that coin. Tremendous support. I found that the deputies were wanting these changes. They were wanting more training. They were wanting more accountability. They were wanting more professionalism, and they're getting it. And talk does not last long. You have to deliver. And they see a lot of items, things, thoughts, policies, procedures that are being delivered, and they like it. And those are things that are going to continue. Some of the issues that are very, very close to my heart is looking out for those that can least care for themselves. The elderly, the youth of our community, those who've got mental illnesses, health issues, a multitude of areas. If the sheriff does not look out for those people, in many cases, nobody else will. And I work very hard to do exactly that, and I will continue to do it. You can count on it. Some of the programs we've got going on at the Sheriff's Department that have been successful, and many of them are programs that Larry Sanders implemented. We have Project Lifesaver. That's a program where it doesn't have to be a senior citizen. Anybody that needs to be checked on a daily basis can sign up for this program, and an automated call is made every day at a certain time. If the person's not able to answer the phone, a call is made a few minutes later. And after 3 calls, if we do not receive a response, we send a patrol deputy out to check on them. This has proved useful time after time, and has saved many lives, many lives. Alive at 25, we're trying to be very active with the younger generation in Garland County. And this is the driver's safety course more than anything. And we're participating and presenting this in many of the schools. Something hopefully we'll have in place in the next 6 months is a school resource officer at every school within the county. Mountain Pine will be receiving a new school resource officer. Cutter, hopefully by the beginning of next semester, we'll have a school resource officer there. Lake Hamilton, I'm hoping we'll have one at some point in the very near future. The community college already has one. And in case you don't know what a school resource officer is, it's a sworn deputy that has completed the police academy, is assigned to work with the school system. And it's much more than security. These deputies go into the schools and conduct classes where appropriate and interact with all the school activities. They're at the ball games. They're at the special events. And just as important, it gives us a police presence in all areas of the county. And one of the best things about this, these positions are funded by the school districts. So in a way, we are getting free law enforcement presence at these various locations. Free in the sense it's not costing Garland County money directly out of their pockets. There's nothing free.
Who are you still paying? It's okay.
The big thing that's coming up in the next couple of months, of course, is the detention center. $43 million. Make no mistake, it's your detention center. A lot of dollars have come out of every single person's pocket in this room, and will continue to do so. We've if you make no changes come. Over my 30-plus years of law enforcement, it's been a revolving door. I didn't understand it in the early days. I would be filling out arrest reports, and before I was even done with those reports, the person was walking out the door. The jails were full. They've always been full. There's no hammer that can be held over these people that are being charged. Unless it's a serious felony offense, and many times a violent offense, they're not going to be incarcerated because there's no room. To incarcerate them means we're turning loose a violent felon. So there's been no real consequences locally on less serious offenses. But the new detention center is going to change that. But it's not going to come automatically. It's not going to come automatically. That is an area that has to be watched like a hawk. We need to focus on making sure Garland County is taken care of first and foremost. If we're not careful, that jail will be filled up with state prisoners and jail inmates from other counties. And we could be back at full capacity just like that. And there's a person that has the authority to make sure that does not happen, and that's the sheriff. And I will be watching that once again like a hawk. Garland County comes first, and if we have space available, we'll open it up to other jurisdictions. But I'll be working very, very hard on that. There's going to be a multitude of programs that are offered within the new detention center. One of the foremost one is an opportunity for the inmates to get a GED. We want those people that are coming in there to be a little bit better prepared to survive in society without stealing, selling drugs, violating the law in general. So we're going to be focusing very hard towards that. And once again, guess where the funding comes from? Right out of your pockets. So we want to make sure every dollar is utilized to the best of our ability. What I'm predicting, and only time is going to tell, I see a steady decline in the crime rate in Garland County. Once again, it's not going to come automatically, but with the right focus and direction, I foresee that. And I hope in a couple of years from now, I'm able to bring a chart and say, remember, a couple of years ago we were talking, here's the crime rate, here is where it was then, here it is now. One step at a time, though. So there's some positive things going on, and I don't think I could have picked a better time to be sheriff in Garland County. When the jail's open, it'll house approximately 384 inmates. I know a lot of you have been out there and looked at it, but it's made up of six separate pods, each pod holding approximately 64 inmates. There's going to be one detention deputy in each pod. It's under the direct supervision philosophy, to where the inmates are rewarded for good behavior and privileges are taken away from them for poor behavior. If you get somebody in there that is a violent offender, they'll never actually have an opportunity to be in open population. They would be segregated in a certain area. For those that do behave, do participate, they have additional freedoms. A lot of people say, well, that's ridiculous. The jail is to lock people down. And that actually would have been my philosophy many years ago. Look where it's gotten to us today. Between the Sheriff's Department, the Police Department, the State Police, the Park Service, and the other law enforcement agencies, there are people being arrested every 5 minutes. These officers are arresting up teen people, and that's the way it's always been. If you look at the arrest reports on a daily basis, they're that thick. Law enforcement is doing a good job of arresting people, but at that point it falls short. They are being locked down if there's room available, but there's no measures taken to make them or to change behavior when they're released. So this is an opportunity to help change behavior and give them an opportunity to be better citizens. And we're also going to have drug prevention and education programs within the detention center. We're going to have mental health care available within the detention center. And that's huge. That is huge. Over the years, it's been one of the top problems with the criminal element. And if you've got mental issues and you don't receive the right problem or the right treatment, you're going to just continue. Security. There's a courtroom within the new detention center, which is going to improve the security of the inmates. We've all seen the escapes that have happened in the last few years, and that's been a very high priority of mine too. It goes back to accountability. If a prisoner escapes, I'm looking for who is accountable, who dropped the ball. Do we have a problem in procedures and policy, or did someone not do the job like they are? But having the courtroom out there is going to minimize transporting prisoners to and from the courtroom. And I'm working real hard with the judges to get as many hearings within the facility as we possibly can. So hopefully, and you can't prevent all escapes, but hopefully it'll be a long time before we hear about another escape. And I pray in tomorrow's paper, you don't open it up and say, inmate escaped from the sheriff's department. But we're trying to minimize all our potentials on that. Let me touch base, and I know you all have questions on the Stanley situation. And it's been very troubling for me. As a sheriff, as I stated earlier, one of my high priorities is taking care of those that can least take care of themselves, and children certainly fall within that category. The First Amendment applies to freedom of speech. In situations such as these, law enforcement is very limited on what they can talk about, especially when it comes to the welfare of children. But this has put us in a tricky situation because there's a lot of information coming out on one side of the coin and almost no information coming out on the other side of the coin. Puts us at a disadvantage. And even today, I can't speak about the details in that particular situation. But I can assure you, in this situation, or in any situation in the future, I try very hard to do the right thing. I will always try hard to do the right thing. And sometimes you take a bashing. And I have taken a bashing over this, and there's others that have too. It's been very stressful for me, and I wish I could snap my fingers and we lived in a perfect world, but we don't. But I do ask for support and time to be able to pass by when the facts come out in this particular situation. And there's going to be a time when the accountability issue will be completely on the table. And if someone acted inappropriately, they will be held accountable, whether it be me or others involved in this. But it's not fair to have judgment on a situation where all you're seeing is one side of the coin. Tricky situation. Tricky situation. I've been receiving calls from all over the world, actually. I don't get a lot of local calls, but I get a lot of calls from outside the state and outside the country. And most of those calls are just hostile. And that never leads to anything positive. People need to let the system take its course. And as your sheriff, if I felt like something was a violation of the Constitution, everything I stand for pushed me in the direction of dealing with that, because I'm not going to tolerate it. I'm not going to violate my core values. And I know, looking out there, there's some people that they're like, no, let the process take its course. And we're getting close. We're getting close. My focus is towards the youth of our community and making sure they're taken care of. We did our job. The court system is responsible beyond that point. And that's where we're at right now. People actually come up and ask me about the details. And once again, I can't really discuss the details. But I can say there are details that I don't even know of. Once these children are turned over to the Department of Human Services, they don't call back to the sheriff's office. In fact, I don't think they've called back to the sheriff's office one time since they assumed custody of the children. So we don't have all those facts. We will never have all those facts that came about after they were turned over to them. With that being said, professional law enforcement is what I'm about. I will always be about that. I'll always be about upholding the Constitution. I'll always be about transparency. I've got an open door policy. Sometimes I'm kind of hard to catch, but if I'm there, my door is open, and I encourage any kind of problems, questions, issues, I will deal with them as honestly and effectively as I possibly can, and you can always count on that. Let me open it up for questions. Yes.
I want to answer the question. In the original Stanley situation, it sounded as if your deputy sheriff pushed DHS into taking the children. And again, this is in the newspaper, that's why I'm asking the question. I mean, was it DHS that said these children need to be taken out of the home, or was it initially pushed by your deputy?
I will answer that, and that may be pushing the gag order. And if I am arrested, I expect help bailing me out of the jail.
We'll get you out.
He has a big
He's got the key.
Yeah. Who's responsible for ensuring the safety of the people within Garland County? Ultimately, the sheriff is responsible for that. DHS is at a lower level of assuring responsibility and safety within our county. I've dealt with the Department of Human Services many times over the years, and they have a lot of constraints. They have a lot of issues, bureaucracy that they have to deal with. Bottom line is this: it's that law enforcement officer that's at the scene to ensure the welfare in this particular situation. The children are not in danger. And let's take the Stanley situation out of this, allow me to talk a little more freely. I would expect any of my deputies to make sure the welfare of that person that can at least take care of themselves is properly protected. And we don't blindly follow any other agency. That's what makes the Sheriff's Department so great. If you have it in competent hands. If the deputy feels like the children are in jeopardy, I do not expect them to just walk away. And to answer your question, yes, it was the deputy's decision, and I was conferred with. And based on the information that I was given, I would not have allowed that deputy to walk away. Now, when all is said and done, once again, I will be accountable if the situation, or whatever the situation shows. I don't make these decisions arbitrarily. That's probably about as much detail as I can go in on that.
If you come out the loser, are you expecting a big suit over this?
Number one, the right decision was made, period. And I feel in my heart, no matter what happens, the right decision was made. And sure, there's always a potential for lawsuits, and I'm going to do what I think is right and let the chips fall where they may. And I'm good with that. In all situations, I'm not talking just about this one in particular.
On a different topic, you said that the jail has a GED program to help people when they're released again to have a better way of making it, and then also this method of where you hold them, as kind of reward and punishment kind of thing, but also encourage them to do right. Do you have a jail chaplaincy program also?
Ed Losey is our chaplain, and not all, but a great many of our programs within the detention center are going to be faith-based programs. And that is a big part of the detention center. In fact, the quorum court approved the elected official putting a religious symbol within their departments. And what we're going to do is have a sign, and we haven't located the exact position of this yet, a sign that will state in God's name. So everything we're going to do is
You referred to having hearings in the courtroom there. I thought that was only for arraignments. Is it for hearings as well?
to be used for hearings. We're going to use it. There are certain cases when you conduct a jury trial where they would have to actually go into a normal courtroom. But short of that, they can have most hearings within the detention center.
Is that because it's not designed with a jury box and such, or?
The judges, and I think rightly so, believe that there's more of an assumption that someone is guilty if they're coming out of a detention center or if they're part of a detention center. So if say they do have a hearing there, there's just an additional presumption of guilt if it's held within the detention center. So on the bigger cases, those are going to be held in the typical court.
So you expect both circuit and district court cases to have hearings out there fairly soon?
And I'm going to do everything I can to encourage as many court actions to take place out there as we possibly can. We're going to be doing a lot of video arrangements. We've got all kinds of exciting things that are going on. The more I can keep it within the detention center, the better off. Once you put someone in a vehicle and start transporting, that's when your risk factor goes up. So video arrangements, court hearings, whatever we can do, I'm going to encourage the judges to do that.
Sheriff, I'd like to ask you another question. Let's go back to the Stanley case. DHS, as we know, will yank your child away from you just like that. And dealing in the Capitol, I see stuff with DHS all the time. And they're not a very popular part of DHS, the children's part. And the lady from DHS said the children should stay there, who is working with children and families all the time, who said the children should not be taken from the home, and yet your private detective said, I'm running this and we're taking them away. How did he have the authority to overrule DHS, who knows all about families and children, and in fact doesn't even let you whip your children? They want you to whisper in their ear and that'll make them behave. So my question to you is, how did you overcome DHS? You let your private detective, who said, I'm running this, to the DHS worker. How did that happen that you overruled DHS, who is in the children's department? And I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm just telling you, I'm trying to figure out, because DHS is very, very involved with families and children. And, but yet, your guys experience somewhat, but not as much as DHS. So how in the world did he overrule DHS, who deals with this all the time?
Well, now you made a lot of assumptions, and we're starting to get over in that area that I really can't go. I know that deputy, and with conferring with me, actually within his level of authority.
I understand the authority, but I don't understand how he got so trained in it that he could take that child away with DHS, the children away with DHS is telling you they're fine, leave them in their home. And then you take them out in the middle of the night, which is very frightening to the children. But I'm just trying to, and I have thought about this as I have said to y'all. I have been one of these children, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, DHS is very experienced in this, and they said, leave the children there. And then you have this detective who is not experienced in this area, and yet he overruled DHS and said, I'm running this, and we're taking it.
Mike?
I think I can answer her question for you.
Somebody needs to.
Well, and I can too, but go ahead, and then I'll give you my response to it.
If you have a hand.
No, go ahead.
Tell me.
I think what the deputy responded to, DHS can always, in their expertise, they hire people for $18,000 or $20,000 a year who have never had any experience. They're straight out of college. And, you know, hopefully their training leads them to the right decision. But I think in this instance, there was a risk of possibly leaving. The circumstances weren't clear, and no one could ensure that the family didn't leave or that there was a real risk to their lives. So I think what happened was the deputy called the sheriff and said, I think there's a risk. Should we overrule them or take them? And I think that's what happened. I worked for DHS for 10 years, and I think that, you know, I'd rather have children taken for 2 days, have a hearing and say they were taken for no reason, but they're safe. There's no question that they live for another day. Nobody can guarantee. When you go into a situation like that, you cannot guarantee the children's safety under those circumstances. So I think what they were thinking was take them and then let the judge decide if they're in imminent danger, and which that happened. So that's my take on
I
it.
don't know what he's got his stuff in now. You don't know what to do with it.
I can give anything else a second. We've only got 6 minutes.
Just 30 seconds.
Go ahead.
You made an excellent point. You responded very appropriately. And how could you or me, why would you not want to fall on the side of caution when the lives of our greatest asset could be at stake? But I also know, saying that many people have got their minds made up on this issue, and no matter what I say or anyone else says, they're going to be right in the same path. But
Well, we
once
don't-
again, just keep an open mind. And
Well, really, Sheriff, we don't know everything, and I agree with you there. I was just wanting to know how it came down the way it did, that's all.
I appreciate your point. Thank you very much.